I'm sure we've all heard the phrase career path, but Joel Gordon knows it better than anyone I know. He has learned that a winding road is just the scenic route, and that passion can be the key to your success. Join Joel for a little unorthodox guidance. Enjoy.
Oh my gosh, that is the greatest introduction I've ever had. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Anybody out there that wants to tell me yes or no? Or okay, fantastic. I sound good. All right. Do I have a lot of background noise? Because I'll warn you guys, I'm actually running a bunch of stuff in the background right now. I have a laser cutter engraver going, and I have a 3D printer that's running on the other side of the room. So there's a little noise in the background, but if it doesn't bother you, then it doesn't bother me, and we'll just keep going. So my name is Joel Gordon, and yeah, I've done a lot of things in my life. And we're going to talk a little bit about careers today. So I get a chance to talk to a lot of young folks. And one of the things that I've been really concerned with in the last few years, especially now, I feel like with COVID-19, a lot of us feel like there's pressure on us to make decisions about certain things. But one of the things that I've really discovered is that a lot of young folks are we're sort of encouraging to go down these career paths, particularly in STEM. We tell you, you know, it's a good idea to go into a STEM career, and I think as adults we do a really good job of encouraging you to explore and to study STEM. But I think we do a really lousy idea of sort of explaining to you what those careers are and what a variety of careers there are. Usually when we talk about STEM, we end up saying, you know, science, technology, engineering, and math, right? Well, or STEAM, which is really what I like, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. But sometimes we sort of confuse the idea of art as a separate career from STEM. So in my life, I've had a chance to be an engineer, designer. I was the science guy for an ABC affiliate for about 8 years, off and on. So I have a pretty broad background. But what I really did in my career that I loved the most was I was a special effects artist, and I worked in film and television. Now I'm very into the maker community. So quite a few years ago, I stopped working in film and television, and I started instead working towards this opportunity to be an educator. And I thought I wanted to go back to school and become I guess, a proper educator where I actually get my teaching certificate, and I get to work with students like yourselves that are out there and studying. And I was really excited about trying to inspire young people. So I went back to school, and I did that for about 2 months. But then I got a phone call, and I was invited to work on a movie in Chile. And so I dropped out of school and I went to work on a movie in Chile instead because that sounded like fun. So my point to that is that this idea of career path is more like a winding path. It's something that you get on, but it's your choice to get off once in a while. So I'm an educator now, but I'm an informal educator, and I work at a children's museum called the Scott Family Amazeum. And I absolutely love it. Every day I get to work with a wonderfully excited group of kids. Sometimes it's different. I see a lot of the same faces sometimes. But I came into this as a return. At one point, I worked in children's museums. I worked for a museum called Museum of Discovery, and I did that quite a few years ago. But when I left Museum of Discovery, like I said, I was very into the maker movement. So I actually helped to found an organization called the Arkansas Regional Innovation Hub. And it's a maker space. It's about a 22,000 square foot maker space in North Little Rock, Arkansas. And it's been nationally recognized. It's a really fantastic place. I helped to found that. And before I left there, after being there for 5 years, I was the executive director, which sounds really important. And I had to shave all the time, and I had to cut my hair all the time, and I had to look like an executive. And sometimes it was a lot of fun and sometimes it wasn't. So I again, I made a choice and I changed my career and I went back to working for children's museums. So the whole point to this is this. I have since high school, I've joined the military where I was an electronics communication specialist. I got into college where I studied theater. I got my degree in technical theater. I worked for a world-renowned production studio called Chicago Scenic Studios. I've worked at Radio City Music Hall. I've lived in other countries. I worked at a children's museum. I co-founded a space. I was an executive director, and now I'm back to working in children's museums, and it was all my choice the whole time. And that's my career path, which again looks like a winding path. And that's really up to you. So what I'm going to do today is actually take you guys through a little bit of PowerPoint. I'll try not to bore you, but I want to do it because it's something that I think that everybody needs to think about. So I'm going to try and share my screen here. Let's see if I succeed. Right here. And let me just present. There it is. All right, so everything starts with an idea. So what's your idea? The important thing about ideas is that we all have them, and all of our ideas are important. So what's your idea? The other thing about ideas is every idea starts somewhere. So what we're looking at right here are actually these things called Clovis points. So if you were an archaeologist and you were studying, or an anthropologist and studying a culture, the Clovis people during the Paleolithic period were a group of people who actually are identified by this point. So a Clovis point is an arrowhead. It can be a knife blade. It can be a spearhead. But what's really important about a Clovis point is that it started with an idea. Someone came up with this idea and they developed the skills to make this thing. And that's really the important part of it. It's an idea that became a real life thing. They made this. They were makers, and it started way back in the Stone Age. The map that you're looking at right now is actually, it's fascinating to me. So every point that you see on this map is where Clovis points have been found. Now, a lot of times the reason these points were found there is because the certain kind of rock that they needed, the geologic makeup of that area, lended itself to making these Clovis points. So the fun thing about this is that if you look, a lot of these places today in modern times are actually industrial areas where we manufacture and we create. They're also, they coincide with these artistic hubs around the country. And I just think that's fascinating that all the way back from prehistory to today, we sort of have this trail of creation and making. Making comes from something that's inside all of us. And there's something that I call a hierarchy. And that hierarchy is sort of a foundation and then a plateau and then a peak of where our ideas go. So every idea starts with play. All of us play, we enjoy, we mess with things, and that's the really exciting part. And that's something that should be encouraged. In my life, I've done my best to never stop playing. I'm always trying something new. I'm always trying something that I haven't done before, and that makes me a lifelong learner. And I think that's really important. But almost everything I've done in my life has started with this idea of play. And then at some point when we're playing, that play becomes a pastime. And what I mean by that is that we start to invest more of our personal time into this thing that we're excited about. So it may be, for some of us, it could be a sport. You may love soccer, or you may love baseball, or volleyball, and you start to invest more time in that thing that you love. And it comes out of this idea of play and this creative energy that is play. But pastime is when we begin to invest ourselves into it. And then eventually it goes beyond pastime and it becomes purpose. Sometimes we can say pastime is a hobby. You've all heard, I have a hobby and my hobby is this. Well, when I was young, my hobby was creating. I loved electronics. I loved to make things, particularly little machines and sculpture and art. And my pastime became a hobby, and my hobby eventually became a career. I just followed this sort of path of passion that I had, things that I was really excited about. That's what I wanted to do, and that became my purpose. But I thought about film and television, things like that when I was little, and I was really in love with it. But I didn't know anyone who worked in film and television. I really didn't have an engineer in my life. I didn't have a lot of creative artists, but I had examples of things that I loved. So I started to seek out a community of people that I could work with. When does it start? Well, it starts here. It starts for all of us at this moment when we're, making mud pies, where our hands are doing something and they're taking up time. They're investing in the material that's in front of us, and it could be making mud pies. But every time we do something, every time we invest physically and mentally in spending time with something, we're developing skills. And those skills translate eventually. You go from mud pies and this tactile connection that we have, this opportunity to play, and eventually that play becomes more formal. So you could become an artist, someone who works in clay and creates art. You could become a scientist who's working in polymers, in very precise materials, and creating things that are maybe one day going to go into space or be on the International Space Station. But every one of us learns from this background that we've earned in this opportunity to play and discover. So play is important because you don't get good at jumping rope by memorizing the text, right? It's not all about books. It's not all about studying and maybe watching videos or watching presentations from our teachers. It's also that opportunity that when you begin to learn something that you're fascinated with, you go out and you enjoy that thing and you play with that thing. It may be that first time that you watch ants on an anthill and you become inspired by the ant itself or by the patterns that they're moving, whatever it is. And we each sort of begin to take this path of scientist or artist or whatever we feel that our passion leads us to. And that's great. It's great that we do that, and we should never forget to do that. So play is the most important thing, not just learning, but learning through play. Because again, don't get good at jumping rope by memorizing the text, right? You got to go jump the rope. So tinkering is a lot of what I do now. So tinkering is open-ended exploration of tools and materials. Sometimes things are in front of us and we see someone doing something and we just want to try it. That's something called mirroring. Maybe when we're little kids, we see older kids or our peers who are doing something and we think, oh, I want to try that too. So the first way that we tend to learn as little kids is by watching others and doing what they do. And then we begin to discover new ways of doing those things, exploring those materials, exploring the tools that are in front of us in a very open-ended process, maybe not with a goal in mind, but just with this idea of what can we do and what happens if. That's tinkering. When we tinker, we start to develop fluency. Now, when we're little kids and we hear adults speak, none of us are born with the ability to talk. But as we listen and as we begin to observe, we begin to pick up words. Each of us has probably talked to our parents or a guardian who tells us, your first word was this. I happen to know that my first word was horse. I think actually it was horsey. I grew up on a farm and we had horses, and I guess that was one of the first things that I saw, and I picked up that word. That was my first word. And from there, I started to develop fluency. I started to learn new words. Well, every skill that we learn is just a matter of fluency. We each began to discover things that we're good at. We try these things and we become more fluent. We develop fluency in our skills, in our behaviors, in the way that we react with others, in our language. Fluency is important, and it begins with tinkering. It begins with that idea of play and discovery. Now, once you get beyond this idea of here's some things that I've played with and some ideas that I have, you begin to develop praxis. Praxis is when we have theory. So you have an idea. You have that original idea that I was talking about when we first started. I have an idea. I think this. And if this is what I think, I need to test that idea, right? So we take action. We have a theory, we take action. And after we see what the result is, we reflect on those actions. Did it turn out to be what we hoped it would be? Is it this other thing? And that's how we learn, right? That's how we discover more. And it's also the thing that makes us passionate about what we're doing and discovering where we could go with that idea. So praxis. Now, after praxis, we get into something else. We get into this deeper idea where we say, well, if I have this idea, if this tool does this and this material does this, then I think I want to do this. So it stops being about the process and starts to become about the product, what we want in the end, what we want our product to be. So from there, we start getting into making. Making is, for me, and this is my personal definition, making is that point where we begin to say, I have an idea. I want to accomplish this thing, and we strive towards it. So at that point, when you know there's an end goal, there are skills that you need to develop along the way. So you start to learn those things that are important to you. You start to realize that there are things that I need to learn because there's this thing that I want to do. Now, that thing could be coding and programming. It could be learning to use a power tool. It could be learning to write in a coherent fashion or a entertaining way that people will read and be inspired by. But we're each of us learning to make. We're looking for that end goal, and we're making that thing that we're excited about. Making is about community. Once we start to think about making, we start to seek that community of others that are going to help us learn those skills that we need to develop. We begin to seek out knowledge, learn those things. We define a project, this thing that we want to accomplish. And as we move towards accomplishing that project, we learn a deeper set of skills that maybe we didn't have before. And that's really the important part. How do we inspire ourselves and maybe others in that community to learn these skills, to develop these ideas, and to move forward with this project that they've decided that they want to accomplish? And that's the result, right? At the end, there's this thing. At the end, there's this thing that we each wanted to accomplish, that we wanted to try. And that's the result of all of this work. Then there's this idea of craft. So craft is a word that a lot of people are trying to sort of take back. And what I mean by that is this. A lot of times when we say the word craft, we think of arts and crafts. Maybe more like we learned in our earliest school, not so much the way that we've developed ideas by the time we become adults, but it's the arts and crafts, and air quotes. To me, craft, and I joke all the time that maybe I should start spelling it K-R umlaut A-F-T. Craft is, I think, a very important thing. For me, craft is that point where we've tinkered and we've begun to develop our ideas. We're makers and we're making a product that has a finite result. But those skills that we've developed along the way, how far do we want to go with those skills? And I think that craftsmanship, that point of becoming a craftsperson where you're so passionate about your craft, your art, that it becomes about you. So there's this change that happens where making is maybe more about a community. Once we reach that point where it's about craft, it becomes a little more introverted. It becomes a little bit more about what I personally want to accomplish, what you personally want to accomplish, how you feel about your personal craft, and how you develop that craft. Craft for me is that point where we're seeking deepest knowledge. We're seeking that utmost skill. We're looking to achieve mastery in something. And I think that's an incredibly important thing. And I think that each of us needs to be encouraged in that. Now, here's where we get into the adult stuff. So each of you has been told about this idea of career path. You should all be on a career path. The idea of working on a career in STEM is a great idea, and it is. I encourage it. Everyone should work on a career in STEM. But what is STEM, right? Well, we can explore that. But let's go through our little roadmap here for just a minute. A workforce development. So we begin in early childhood, and we're making mud pies. We start tinkering, we start messing with things, we look at others, and we begin to mirror their actions. In a lot of ways, as adults, as we watch teachers or people who have skill in a craft, we mimic their facilitation, we mirror how they're teaching so that we can teach our own children or teach peers who are developing those skills. We get beyond tinkering and we get into making. Now, that doesn't mean we ever stop tinkering. I'm always messing with things. I've never stopped tinkering. In fact, it's one of my favorite pastimes. There's always something that I want to mess with to see what I can do with it, or how it'll work, or could it do this. But once we get into making, there's a shift to where we're seeking mentors, or we're seeking to become a mentor for peer engagement. And we begin to develop those skills in a deeper way. And skills development can become a workforce path. Now, notice I didn't say career path, I said workforce path, because a job is a job, and we're all going to change jobs throughout our lives. And that's not necessarily a career, it's just a job. But if you have the skills to do a job, then that's an opportunity for you to move your life forward, to maybe make a little money, support your family, whatever it is you need to accomplish. Maybe you're looking to make money to buy a car. For me, that was a really important piece of freedom when I was a teenager. I got a job, my earliest job that I remember, I was about 13. And I began to work towards the idea of making enough money that I could buy a car and sort of gain my independence. So skills development to workforce path. Now, once you get beyond that, you start to think about a career. Now, you could take those skills and become a creator of some sort, become a developer, whether it's woodworking or coding and programming. You could be an inventor. There are opportunities to come up with the best idea ever, and then you create a product that you can make money on. Or you could just be an entrepreneur where you're creating a product that you can sell. Whatever that product is, it's up to you. Or you can take that path to becoming a craftsperson and going into a deeper engagement. But even then, once we decide to take that path, that may lead back into that idea of a career. You may become a teacher and you want to mentor and share the love of what you've learned and help inspire that in others. And that's really why I became an educator. I love to inspire people because it inspires me. Every time I'm around a group of people who are excited and they want to do something creative, it gives me energy. And that's really what I sort of strive for. So what's your idea? And when you hear the phrase career path, does it sound like a trap? And here's what I mean by that. I feel like today, maybe as adults, we've pressured a lot of you into the idea of what a career path is. So I'm going to try and clear that up today. And then I'm hoping that you'll give me your questions and we can talk about a few things. Career path is a trap. I will say this. When I was 16, and I graduated from high school at 16, but when I was 16, I was looking to move out of my house already. I wanted to go live on my own, not because I was angry or anything like that. It's just that I grew up kind of poor, and my family, my parents struggled a little with myself and my sister and my brother. So all of us were sort of encouraged to learn a work ethic and to go do something. So I wanted to go work, but this idea of career path for me sounded really scary. I ended up going into the military out of high school, not really because that was my choice. It was more that it was just an opportunity that was laid out in front of me, and it seemed like something that I could do right now. as you think about this idea of career path, and a lot of you who are in school, your schools are offering you career paths. It might be in IT, it could be in the medical field, it could be in construction, or in, I mean, anything. It could be HVAC. And a lot of teenagers that I talked to today seem to hesitate on the idea of choosing one of those career paths. So I'm hoping today that what I can do is sort of alleviate a little bit of that stress. And what I mean by that is that just because you're choosing a career path in school doesn't mean that that's what you're going to do the rest of your life. My career has changed about every 10 years of my life, and I'm 53 years old today. So around every 10 years, I've found another interest. I've changed a career. I've done something different, and I've had an opportunity to do really exciting things in my life. And really, it's come from that idea of play. And every time I learn a new skill, I take that skill and I put it in my personal toolbox. So when I'm met with a challenge, I have the tools to face that challenge and overcome it. And when I come up with an idea, because I've developed those skills, I have a lot of the tools that I need to make that idea come to fruition, to make it a real thing. So what's your idea? And does it solve a problem? Is it your personal problem? Is it someone else's problem? Skills versus tools. So what's more important? A lot of people today tell me that they can't accomplish something because they don't have the tools that they need. So I'm here to say that a lot of times in my life, I didn't have the tools that I need. Now I'm lucky because over years, over decades, I've collected the tools that I needed, that I needed to accomplish what I was trying to do, but I still want more tools. That's always going to be that way. You ask any maker and they'll wish that they had another tool or a newer tool, and that's great. But the one thing that you can't replace are skills. Skills versus tools. If you have skills, you'll find a way, right? So materials, what you have on hand and what you wish you had, they're two different things, right? We always wish for more. We always wish we had this other thing, and that's fine. But what you have on hand is where you start, and you work to accomplish that thing that you're trying to accomplish, whatever it is. So materials at hand will get you further than throwing your hands in the air ever will. That's a personal quote from me. Feel free to use it. So you look at these kids building a cardboard rocket, right? They're going to the moon. Well, that cardboard is the material that they had in front of them, and they're developing an idea. They're growing a dream with simple cardboard. It's not what you have, and it's not what you do. It's not what you have, it's what you do with what you have. So cardboard is so ubiquitous, it's everywhere. But what you do with that cardboard is really where the miracles happen, right? I got to see a documentary just recently, and I absolutely fell in love with it. So I'm going to share this with you, and I hope that you'll look it up. It's called The Cardboard Bernini. So this gentleman is this incredible artist, and you look at everything that's in front of you right now, and it's all cardboard. And it's on a scale that's nearly unbelievable. I am so impressed by it, and I was so impressed with the work that he was doing. And all was simple cardboard, just things that other people throw away. So it's ultimately about what you can do and what you're willing to do and the work you're willing to put into it. And it doesn't have to be work if it's fun, right? So this is just a real quick overview that I give a lot of students that I work with. I worked with some students at the University of Arkansas just a couple of days ago, and they're in a design course, and they said, well, if I had this tool, oh, my lights went out. Hold on. My lights go out automatically, so I have to get up and run around the room every once in a while. It keeps me from getting fat. So these students are working on designs, and I hear them say all the time, if I had Adobe Illustrator, I could do this. If I had Photoshop, I could do this. If I had SolidWorks, et cetera, et cetera. Well, there are versions of these things that maybe don't have all of the same capability that these other softwares that you wish you had have, but they're a starting place. So instead of Adobe Illustrator, you could try Inkscape. Inkscape is a free open source software that anyone can use. Instead of Photoshop, there's GIMP. Instead of SolidWorks, there's Fusion 360, which is what I use, which, yes, costs a little money, but it's maybe not as expensive as SolidWorks. You can also get a free student license of Fusion 360, so check that out. If you want to go completely free, FreeCAD is an incredible piece of software, and it's available for everybody. When I worked in film and television, I used ZBrush. ZBrush is very expensive, but ZBrush, because they're a magnanimous, wonderful company, they put out ZBrush Core Mini, which is a free version of ZBrush that doesn't have all of the capabilities of ZBrush, but is incredibly powerful. And you can download it and you can try it for yourself. Instead of Maya, there's Blender. It's what you put into something. And if you take the time to research and get your goals in mind of what you want to accomplish, there's opportunity for you to do it. No excuses. There's always a way. The path you choose is up to you. And sometimes it's really winding, like mine was. I've had a lot of careers. I'll probably have another one after this, and I'm looking forward to it. And all of my maker friends, I'm constantly inspired by this entire community of wonderful makers and their abilities to create something really from nothing. We're always inventing, we're always creating, and there's no reason to worry about what your career path is. If you have a passion for something, you can start in one place and you can end up somewhere completely different. So always think about anything that you do as the skills you're going to develop and how that's going to help you get to where you want to go. And with that, if it's okay with you guys, I'd love to take some questions from you. And I hope there's a few of you out there that have an idea of what career you'd like to have. And, or maybe you have questions about something you want to explore. But if you do, I'd love to hear about it. And if not, I can sit here and talk. Anyone have a big idea that they want to talk about? Oh, here we go. We're working on composing the question. Okay, I will wait. This is part of my studio behind me right here. I have behind me right now, I have a laser cutter engraver. Actually, I have two. And I've got a 3D printer right here. That's a Prusa i3 that I just put together the other day. And I haven't even gotten to use it yet, my goodness, other than just test it to make sure it works. That's another thing I'm really excited about. You guys do have access to a lot of tools that I didn't have when I was young. I got to use my first 3D printer 27 years ago. Oh, wait. What am I making right now on the laser? Oh, I'll actually show you guys. I think I have it. Oh, I have it right here. So I'm hosting an event on Sunday, and we're making, we're having a campfire, and we're making s'mores outside. And because we're social distancing, I wanted everybody to have their own little container to put their s'mores ingredients in. Their Hershey bars and their marshmallows, things like that. So I made these. So we'll put ingredients for s'mores on one side. We'll put our beverages on the other side, and everybody gets to have their own little thing without us mixing our stuff up. Let's see. Any advice for an adult looking to become a maker entrepreneur? Yes, do it. How's that for a piece of advice? Take a chance. It's hard, but take a chance and move towards it. We have this incredible maker economy now. Etsy is a powerful engine to begin to do things that you'd like to try on your own without maybe making too much of an investment in your time and your personal wealth. So explore Etsy. Let's see. How did you go from sourcing the communities of folks that had the expertise in a new field you wanted to enter? Kind of like I met Dale Doherty. The first time I met Dale, I had been, I have issue 1 of Make Magazine, and I went to, I think the first Maker Faire I went to, San Mateo Maker Faire, was the number 2. And I saw Dale from across a parking lot and I wanted to interview him. And I just walked up and asked him, would it be okay if I interviewed him? And those of you who haven't met Dale Doherty, he's an incredible guy. And he just went, sure. And we started talking. And since then, I've had the chance to meet incredible people like Neil Gershenfeld and Sabrina Merlot and all kinds of folks. It's a lot of opportunities, but every opportunity starts with introducing yourself politely and starting the conversation. Let's see. Great advice. Etsy's an amazing resource. Yes, it absolutely is. And it's one of those things that I have actually, for the last few years, actually, this is the first year in about 5 years that I haven't gone to Capitol Hill Maker Faire to talk about micro manufacturing and the idea of the power of makers and the skill sets that we have. Right now, most of our manufacturing in the U.S. is sort of based on big factories, but COVID-19 actually has taught us a lot. Immediately when COVID broke out, our supply chain broke down. And it was a lot of makers and a lot of maker spaces who were able to manufacture small amounts of personal protection equipment over here and over here that we could all supply to people who were in need. And I think that that's a great example of a powerful opportunity for people to actually begin to invest in this idea of micro manufacturing and making. Let's see what I got. Twitter is also an amazing source of maker community. How did you know whether the direction you took, changes you made on your path would pan out? Here's the secret: I didn't. But I sort of followed my passion. Now, I wasn't an idiot. I'm just going to say that you have to be smart about what you do, but you will have to take chances. Nothing's guaranteed, but big chances sometimes have big payoff. When I went into the military, no one in my family had ever been in the military, and everybody said I was an idiot and you shouldn't do it. But it it really paid off for me. And the only reason I did it was, and here's a big secret for you guys. We still got a few minutes left. I was in school. I was not the greatest student in the world. I'm a smart guy. I was a smart kid, but I hated school. I absolutely hated school. And that is not an uncommon answer in the maker community. That is not an uncommon answer in the academic community. My friends who are who teach today, and I've taught at university level. But it's okay to not enjoy school, but school is really important. So you do have to invest yourself. I maybe didn't invest in myself as much as I should have. So the result was this: when I was a senior in high school, I got a chance to take the ASVAB test. And ASVAB is the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. And what that is it's a test to see sort of where your skill levels are if you decide to join the military. The only reason I took it was because it got me out of school for half a day, and I really didn't mean to get invested in the test, but I took it and I scored in the top 5% of kids in the nation. So I started getting recruited by everybody: the Air Force, the Army, the Marine Corps, the Navy. The Navy offered me a full ride to Annapolis, and I turned it down because I didn't know what it was. All I knew is that it meant 4 years of college, which I already didn't want to do school, and then another 6 years in the Navy. So that was another 10 years. By the time I got out of the Navy, I would have been 27 years old. I would have been ancient. At least that's what my 16-year-old brain said. So I joined the Air Force because I was least likely to ever pick up a gun, according to everything that I read, which was not necessarily true. But I learned a lot of job skills. I learned about electronics, and I was interested in electronics, and I did really well. And it really paid off for me. So I took a chance and I did it, and it got me out of a situation that I was in, and it put me squarely on my feet with opportunities ahead of me. So sometimes taking a chance is the way to go. How do you interact with parents and their children who treat the idea of finding and following one's passion as a nice but unrealistic idea? Those who seem to espouse and normalize the notion of making oneself valuable to employers, i.e., to get a job, even if it's not something one enjoys. Well, great story. So I have a young student who actually just got accepted to MIT. I'm very proud of her. She was in a robotics class that I taught, camp that I did years ago. So she's starting her first year of college in the fall, next fall. But her mother came to me and said, I want her to learn coding and programming so she can get a job. And I said, oh, that's great. Is she interested in coding and programming? Also a secret. I am not interested in coding and programming. I'm okay at it, and it is really good for me because it gets me where I need to go. But I don't love it, but I do love the result. And that's the important part. So I said, does she like coding and programming? And her mom said, no. And I said, what does she enjoy? And her mom goes, art. She loves art. Oh my gosh. She loves art. And I said, is she any good at it? And she goes, oh yes. She was 11 years old at the time. She goes, she's won awards here and this, and she's spectacular. And her mother was so proud of her. And I said, why aren't you encouraging her to go into art? And she goes, well, I need her to have a job when she grows up. And I went, oh. And I looked at her and I said, the video gaming industry is a $49 billion a year industry. And she looked at me in a funny way. Now, this is years ago. She looked at me in a funny way and she goes, I don't understand. And I said, they need artists. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, well, they need artists. They need creatives who create the art that's used in the video game so that they can earn $49 billion. So actually, you should be encouraging her to be an artist because she can have a really good career as an artist. But when we say STEM, right, back to what we said, when we say STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, I've talked to armies of adults and I say, name a career in science, and it's always some ology. Name a career in technology, and it's always computers. Name a career in engineering, and it's always mechanical engineering or building bridges. And I say, name a career in math, and I get a moment of stunned silence. And then they say, math teacher or rocket scientist, right? Well, here's the deal. There are thousands of opportunities to do what you love, but you need to be smart about it. Take a risk, but understand that there's a path that's put out in front of you, and there's a smart way to take that path. So follow your passion, but look for the opportunities. Look for ways. If you love art, you can learn to take that art, and you can take that. If you like pen and ink, you can learn to take a tablet and a digital pen, and you can create your art on that tablet. And maybe one day that tablet will be featured in a video game that's earning trillions of dollars. That's a career, right? And it's what you love. So think about it, be smart. And if the choice for your career path at your high school is HVAC, take the HVAC class because you're going to learn electronics. You're going to learn sheet metal working. You're going to learn mechanics. You're going to learn all of these things that will go into that toolbox that you can keep adding those tools into, and it could pay off for you. So understand that just because it's an HVAC class doesn't mean you're going to grow up and repair heaters and air conditioners. You're going to learn skills, and those skills are what's valuable. It's skills versus tools. You'll get the tools later. Learn the skills now, because skills will always be valuable. Always, whatever it is, whether you're making mud pies or running that 3D printer behind me right now. Anyway, I think we're getting close on time. Is that right? Maybe a minute or two left. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this. And I really hope that it'll make you think a little harder about your career choices and opportunities that are in front of you. So take the time to educate yourself. Look for those peers. Look for opportunities to grow that passion and share it. And most of all, share it. Sharing of ideas are where great things happen. So come up with those incredible ideas. Find your community, find those mentors, find those peers, find those people that you can mentor to, and share those skills. Anyway, thanks guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. And I think that Ryan, if you want to share my information, you guys, I'm really easy to reach. My Twitter handle is at TinkerGuy1. So message me on Twitter. I'll be happy to get back in touch with you. I hope you have a wonderful day and enjoy Maker Faire, you guys. It's the greatest show and tell on earth.